Welcome to episode 2 of The American Yeoman, where we bring 18th century opinion to bear on 21st century issues. I'm your host, Anthony. With me is my co-host, Travis. This podcast, articles, and more can be found at theamericanyeoman.com. Well, Trav, how are you doing this fine evening?
Doing alright. Worked hard like a dog in the blazing sunlight, you know, with this heat wave. It's like 100 out there.
I bet. I was doing my best not to go outside. I thought about you, and it made me feel good inside. Just thinking I wasn't you. I figured you'd probably be taking a shower before you came over here, and you did. I could smell you a mile away, and it wasn't the stink of sweat; it was the sweet smell of Axe body spray.
Anywho, so it's been an interesting year. A lot of repeats of last year of playing on retardism.
Yeah. So we started up this podcast, of course, to cash in on that. Today, you and I talked. We're hoping to take a lighter approach. Our first episode was on a really heavy topic that we could have prepared more, certainly, but we definitely did do a little bit of preparation, kind of had to think about it.
Mostly kind of winging it. I mean, we could have said a whole lot more, bring in like the statistics that, abortion is bad for women psychologically, or, they'll...
Yeah, but that's dumb.
Everybody knows that. I mean, if you don't know that by now, it's kind of, pointless. Mostly, this podcast is mostly towards, Christians and stuff like that, or,
We're not really trying to convince anybody.
Right.
We're really just trying to show people things that people who you probably are inclined to agree with us, and we're just trying to maybe show you something that you didn't necessarily think of, or connecting a dot.
Or no, yeah.
Yeah.
This year, especially, you've been talking to a lot more people, throwing myself out there, which is kind of interesting. Especially with, COVID and all that, you haven't really had too much human interaction, but my personality is not, I'm pretty...
reserved,
whatever. So, you want to talk about me running in this election, a local election. Which,
it's a massive step for you to do.
Yeah. So I was with the Republican, party, and so we're just knocking on doors every weekend, Saturdays and Sundays. But the crazy part is, it's like. Well, it's not crazy. I kind of figured. There's always RINOs, any state, and even if it's like close knit, you don't really know until later near the election where people find out, oh, this person got Hogan money, and then we're like, oh, okay, they're one of those people, or.
It bears mentioning that we live in the Soviet Socialist Republic of Maryland, and we're not particularly fond of our governor, who we lovingly refer to as the Worm. We heard a new one today. He, according to Z-Man, he seems very mole-like, so he's a mole man, which that works as well too.
There's a meme going around. He's wearing has a snout on his face. King of the Pigs. He has a crown on his head too.
Yeah,
so
I have nothing but scorn for guys like him. They have to me it's RINOs. They have no spine, no fire in their belly. It's their you call them Chamber of Commerce guys. It's all.
What's worse about them is that they go underneath the name of Republican, but they're actually a Democrat. So it's kind of like they're a double agent, I guess you could say. Well, not a double agent, just an agent for the Democrats, because they're just chumming around with Democrats. As soon as they get elected, they're like, oh, buddy with the Democrats. I mean, it's that's what he did, and did what they told him to do, basically. What else?
No, we're at a time now where it's you're either cold or you're hot. It seems like there's really, and that's something we can praise the Lord for. It seems like there's not much room these days for that kind of, oh, I'm a moderate. There's no moderates anymore. It's like that. There's that dude on. You ever seen that guy on YouTube? J Reg. He does the anti-centrism stuff. He does videos where he's trying to promote this political philosophy that he calls anti-centrism, which is basically, he accepts every extreme view. He's just against the centrists, the moderates, the people in the middle. It's really it's hilarious, but it's true. I mean, I'm not an accelerationist guy where it's like I just want people to suffer and die, because that'd be like I'm a Satan worshiper, but certainly we need to the good old boys club, it's the way things have always been done. That needs to be smashed forever, and so that the guys who have a vision, can tear each other apart. And the boogaloo can begin.
Well, I hear that some people think that the U.S. is going to. Well, it's collapsing right now, but it's going to take around maybe 5-10 years or whatever. I think it's going to fall apart a lot sooner than that. Just because communication is a lot faster. Everything is speed up times a million compared to the Roman Empire back when that fell. It took a long time for the Roman Empire to fall because communication and stuff like that, barbarians, running around, whatever.
It's an interesting.
It took them forever.
I never considered that how the speed at which you're able to communicate ideas would have a relation upon the rise and fall of society. I've heard someone say that the change which has occurred in our society in the past just 2 years.
Well, the mass immigration across the border with the immigrants that the U.S. keeps bringing in from Africa, random people that don't care about the U.S. They just want to. They're just bringing them over for no reason. And so when you're getting all these immigrants in, and we're sending out cash like crazy, printing cash out like crazy. And in the position we're at, and war is going on, we're obviously in a war against Russia right now.
Yeah.
Even though they didn't declare it, whatever. It's
but
not
they don't declare wars anymore.
Yeah, it's not that. But anyway.
But New York City's putting out, do this in case of a nuclear attack PSA.
Oh, really?
Did you see that?
No, I did not see that.
Yeah, they're actually telling. It's like duck and cover, back in the 50s.
Yeah.
It's wild.
The only nuclear bomb shelter I ever seen was in Wilmington, and that's too far. Of course, you probably don't want to be there anyway. Just run for the hills. But I didn't hear that. Obviously, I don't really listen to New York because they everything over there is they're a police city. They have a lot of crazy laws, such as. You can't misgender someone or you get fined. Of course.
Really?
Yeah.
That sounds like something out of England.
Yeah.
I didn't know they were doing that in New York.
Or sued or something, fined or sued or something stupid.
Wow.
I don't think anyone it's serious it's.
They just have it on the books to make them feel good.
Right.
They're doing the right thing.
I don't think anyone takes that seriously, or report or whatever they have to do so. It's not like you can. So this person just misgendered me on purpose, whatever. It's a lot of hearsay, so it's hard to prove that someone's oh, this guy is a dude, not a lady. But,
so anyway, going back to the primary that we just had, Dan Cox, of course, beat out Hogan's pick, which is
that was a beautiful thing.
Very satisfying. The Democrats are. I see that they're writing articles and commenting that the Maryland GOP has kind of tanked themselves by nominating Dan Cox because he doesn't have a prayer, and it doesn't matter. I take a Democrat. I would take a Democrat over a
Schultz,
over a RINO like Schultz. What is at least they're honest.
Yeah, honest. Yeah,
they're honest. There are enemies, sure, but I appreciate someone who at least knows that I'm their enemy, and they're mine, and not someone who's acting like they're trying to do things for me when in fact they're just. It's that expression from That's not the Hunchback of Notre Dame. The Outlaw Josie Wales. Don't piss down my back and tell me it's a raining. But yeah, it's looking like you won your position.
Yeah.
And I mean, you didn't. It's Travis ran for something that's not political. Really, I mean, there's an opportunity for
political nowadays.
There's certainly an opportunity for corruption. And, Travis has been doing a lot of studying about how to make them. No, I'm just kidding. but anyway, it's looking like he just beat out this old guy
that's been in there for 20 years.
That's part of the problem. That is part of the problem. In our political system is the rule, the gerontocracy, the rule by these geezers who lose touch with.
Mm-hmm.
On the local level, I don't know. That guy could have been perfectly fine,
but they all have like grandkids and stuff like that, and children, and it's kind of weird that they're selling out their people just for dimes and nickels. It's not like they're making billions of dollars, and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna buy this chunk of land out in Mexico."
Are you saying it's remarkable about how on the local level, how
disgusting they are?
That is, and we didn't necessarily. Because we're in a rural county of this liberal state, and it goes Republican every time.
Yeah.
And the guys who win always bill themselves as conservative.
Mm-hmm.
But just through getting involved a little bit in politics for this last election season, it turns out the guys who've been in office, I mean, they're lining their pockets for pittance. I mean, it's not really that big of a deal, but they're taking advantage of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's wild just how our system is corrupt throughout.
Mm-hmm.
I'm losing faith in our democracy, Travis.
Well, that's it's not supposed to be a democracy. It's
right. It's a republic, which is rule based. The ideal is rule by the best men among you, the men who are most suited for it, who are most sacrificial to the body of their fellow citizens, with some input from their fellow citizens.
Right.
That's the idea.
Originally, our forefathers were thinking about having no salaries, but then the balances of like having salaries or not having salaries, or how much should they get and stuff like that, was a huge deal. Because if they didn't have too much money,
term limits as well.
Is a huge problem.
A lot of stuff. It's a mistake to look at the history of our country. It's a mistake to look at history in general and to blame like one thing for why things went wrong. For instance, like the Protestant Reformation. When I became a Catholic, I enjoyed dumping on the Protestant Reformation because there's certainly things about the medieval world that were lost, in the Protestant Reformation. But conversely, there was definitely things that needed to change, and I believe that there were, God uses all human acts, which human acts are necessarily flawed, for good things, and even in something like that. But I mention that because I think about the history of our country, and I think about how, it's as someone who's like a Confederate sympathizer, it's easy to dump on the Federalists who set up our system, but the more you study, it just the different things that have gotten changed. There's a lot of little things that got changed over time that shouldn't have
just got dumped on.
Yeah, for instance, this is one that's been I've been thinking about recently. Has been like Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson was a populist. Was like a early populist. They used to compare Donald Trump to him. Like war hero. He was he was a wild dude. He was really cool, and he was. But he's kind of, in a sense, the founder of the modern Democratic Party. They used to be quite fond of tracing their origin back to them because he was. The Democrats liked talking about how great he was back when they were still just the champions of the common man,
right?
And that was their focus against the big business and the banks and and so before they decided to, basically start supporting the only the recent arrivals, and not non-heritage Americans in this country. But anyway, see. Here's a little problem. I'll let you all in on a little secret. I'm a bit of a professor at heart, so I meander, which could be a problem. But hopefully this is still interesting. But anyway, the point being is that I've been reading a lot of T.S. Eliot lately, and he was a son of New England through and through. This, of course, is the American writer and poet. He moved to England and lived his life there. He's very fond of the English, early 20th century. But anyway, he thought that America lost its way when Jackson was elected. And the reason why was because the country became too democratic. He thought that Jackson kind of inaugurated, basically, if you were a white male, no matter how drunk you were, you had a vote. And so for him, that was the beginning. He had a great respect for the South. And in fact, something that really struck me was he mentioned New England lost who it was before the South did. The South held on to its distinctive regional character and its virtues long after New England had lost its home. And that's another thing that's on my heart that I want to do with this whole project is there's a lot of sites, there's a lot of people who are Southern to the bone, and they operate from that perspective.
And they do it well. Yeah.
They do it well. But I'm wanting, with us, Travis is a good old boy from Virginia, and I'm more, my people come from a more out Ohio ways. And so, between the two of us, we used to fight about, well, not like, we used to argue good-naturedly about it. I don't know. I look back. I'm like, how was I ever just like how was I ever echoing like unionist talking points? They don't really make sense. I remember thinking, no, the union, it must be preserved. Why?
You used to have a bunch of interesting ideas about certain things.
Did I now?
Yeah. What is it? Free will versus.
Oh yeah.
That was hilarious. Was it free will versus
predestination?
Predestination.
Yeah.
I thought that was hilarious.
Was in my Calvin. That was of course the obligatory Calvinist phase.
Going through your skeletons right now, I guess you could say.
Yeah, but I think that we can preserve America's regional character, and as in there's a goodness about the Old South and there's goodness about the Old North, and I know they didn't particularly care for each other back in the old country. They didn't particularly care for the guys who settled in the mountains, the Scotch Irish. Mm-hmm. And to be honest, sometimes even when I meet some of these people who are very full blooded one way or the other, I can find them annoying for whatever reason. But I think that in dissident circles, I think it's important to not blame one part of the country for being the ruiner of the whole.
I mean, it's interesting. Like when you go on vacation and stuff like that, it doesn't matter which state you're going to or whatever. As long as you go into rural areas, you always find anyone that lives in the rural areas are usually very nice.
Excellent point.
It doesn't matter if it's north or south or out west.
And it's in the rural areas that you see the true character of the region, because it's the guys who've been there forever. And it's in the cities, in the cosmopolitan cities, that you get. That's the alien presence. Mm-hmm. It used to be that the cities were more.
It used to have culture and stuff like that.
Yeah, they were more local. They were more attached to where they were built by the people who were there. And then, but the cities, when you start changing when you start changing the demographics of the country, when you start importing multiculturalism, and it's kind of funny because I look back on it now and I'm 25% Polish. Now the Polish are good, solid people. The Slavs are solid people. But sometimes when I think about America, you wonder when they should have when the spigot should have been turned off. Certainly, 1965, the immigration, the law that Johnson passed, that was terrible. That proved to be.
Our population was booming during the American Revolution. That's what Benjamin Franklin noticed. He's like, we're fine on our own. I think it was like 3 million people, but it was everybody. But the average family size was 10 children in one family. That was the average. So you can imagine, within a couple decades, what happened. I mean, the population was booming. And, I mean, of course, you got more English immigrants and stuff like that, but...
Yeah, something funny about Ben Franklin is he didn't consider the Germans to be white. Which is
right.
a real kicker. But you can understand why. I mean, the Scandinavians, the British, very pale. I mean, Arctic Circle pale. And the Germans are more southern people. They're swarthier. And, for Franklin, he was concerned about preserving the English character of the colonies, which I'm seeing. I'm really appreciating how much America is an Anglo nation, that other people have assimilated to, and it seems like whether they assimilate well to that, blending their own traditions with that of the character of the country, the Anglo character, versus whether they assimilate poorly. That seems to make up a decisive difference in the success and how well the country is doing. And we're not doing terribly well, and of course we're losing our identity. We're losing even the identity that we had. America's never necessarily had a super strong identity because our ancestors have only been in this new world for 400, a little over 400 years at most, but often a lot shorter. You compare that to, like, say, an Englishman. An Englishman's ancestors, he has Norman ancestors, Saxon ancestors, Danish ancestors. And he also has ancestors who go all the way back before the Romans came. I mean, he's going to have guys.
It's been a reason for that is that Americans were tied to states. So you don't really say, when you're talking to another state or whatever, you don't mention or to other people, you don't mention that you're from the U.S. You're from this state.
Right.
Even if you're talking to some Frenchy dude.
America's too big. It's too big to have
America didn't have an identity until recently. It's more of a modern thing. It's more of a modern fling.
Post Civil War, the Yankees, those damn Yankees, imposed their. They basically thought everyone else in the country should be like them, and then that's how you get the modern imperial American identity, which has since been eclipsed. Because it's no longer, that's no longer cool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I wonder sometimes if I lived back in the early 1900s, I probably would have been. I mean, I was very jingoistic when I was young. I mean, I kind of loved the idea of America putting the flag literally everywhere and kicking the cowboy crap out of everyone because we're the best. And that's just that was pretty fun, I mean, holy cow! But yeah, back then I'd probably be the same way. Don't know if I would have changed necessarily. Now we've kind of seen through that as a sham, and I'm grateful for that because it is crap. Even when it was actually like benefiting us, like we were like, this is cool, this is working out. It was crap then, but we only realized it's crap after things start going bad, But it's good. It's good we see that. But anyway, that was a bit of a wonder. But that was interesting. We started with just talking about democracy. We're not big fans, if you look on our about page on our website,
if you just
not big fans. Probably not a surprise either. It's kind of funny because our opinion we've developed. Travis was talking here about before we went on started recording. that man, it'd be cool to just do a show about how much we've developed
over the years,
over the past couple years, and it has been extreme.
I mean, because everything, like I said, everything's speeding up. So much more information is going out, and the feds are just doing all this stupid stuff, and now they're just showing themselves what they always done. There's just so much stupider than what
yes.
There's so much stupider than what they were before.
The mask has slipped and has come off, and it's really incredible that they don't. I don't know. I guess I would just expect our enemy. I would expect my enemy to be smarter. I generally like giving people the benefit of the doubt. I don't like underestimating people.
Right.
And so it feels odd because it's like I almost feel like I'm forced to lower my respect because it's like your enemy could be completely evil. You still have some respect. At least they're competent at being evil, right? You know what I mean? But now it's like they're incompetent and they're evil, which is interesting. Like going back to this guy I've been reading recently, Bruce Charlton. He talks about how he really he finds that emphasizing the spiritual nature of the fight, which is it to be really bear a lot of fruit in understanding how our enemies could be so clueless, because they'll do one thing and then they'll do another that completely contradicts or screws up what they were doing. For an example would be the COVID thing. They kind of had things going where they might be able to basically, for all intents and purposes, get a new one world government going. And then all of a sudden, they get involved in this proxy war against Russia, and they effectively, in bungling that, they end up dividing the world into two spheres. And so what Charlton suggests is that this just blew my mind. The demons. I feel like Alex Jones. I really do. Anyway, what he suggests is that the demons are actually not like working together.
It makes sense.
It makes sense because
only one is chaos,
right?
Destruction.
And so you have different groups of demon plan A, demon plan B, and they're like that. But now the sobering thing, and Andrew Wanglin and guys like Charlton, they're suggesting, the guys I'm reading are suggesting that we're in for maximum chaos, maximum suffering, in chaotic form. So it's not jackboots at the door, in the one world government. Which is kind of what we were expecting, and we were kind of like looking.
It'll probably get to that point.
I'm sure as the West collapses, yes, but it's going to be wild.
I mean, like I said, you got that ATF dude knocking on some Delaware dude's door.
Yeah, what was the story?
From what I gather, when you buy too many rifles or whatever, he only bought 2 though. That's the thing. Like 2 is not a lot. That's like a normal redneck's, shopping spree.
Right.
Buying 3 guns.
That's modest, to be honest.
Yeah. And so apparently, when he bought those 2 guns at the same time, there's like when that happens, it's like, oh, the feds just go. I forgot. It's like the straw law or whatever. It's like they don't want people to purchase and start selling these guns off, whatever. They want to make sure you don't do that, and so what they do is, from what I understand. I didn't really look into it too hard because obviously it's like this is messed up. But basically, they came to this guy's door, knocked on his door. There's 3 of them armed with chest rigs on, bulletproof armor on and stuff. Pretty much intimidated this dude into showing his arms. Like you got to show. Apparently, you have to show your arms that you bought, so that the way they can say, oh, they're still here, whatever. Basically. That they're still at this place, like this guy still has them in his possession, that he didn't sell them both off or whatever.
Do they have a warrant?
That's the thing. He did not ask for,
And I mean,
you could have told him to get a warrant.
Right.
If you had to.
Although honestly, I mean, when you're not expecting that,
But the main thing is, it doesn't matter how many guns do you have or whatever. It's just the way ATF just like to do random stuff like this,
Can
making new laws.
Can
and
we?
and intimidation and stuff. That's what they do.
I want to pivot to something that I have in my crosshairs now. That's really been getting my goat as of late. What is up with these? These rather athletic, you'd suppose manly white fellows.
I thought you were going with these athletes that are just dying off.
Well, that's a subject. But no, it's just what's up with these guys in these security services who are normal, who aren't affirmative action hires, or to make the brass feel good that they've hired enough strange people. What's up with these guys? They want to collect their pension so that they can live in the ruins of a once great nation. I know
you're talking about
the typical run-of-the-mill dudes, particularly feds. I mean, I honestly, I don't know of a lower form. I don't know of a lower form of life. I mean, I think I would take a blue-haired lesbian over these guys, because the blue-haired lesbian, at least, again, it's getting back to honesty. You're like,
I mean, they're trying to hire, queer, lesbians, definitely anti-American feds, FBI agents.
They are, but it's the normal white guys who have allowed their own fellow citizens to be brutalized.
They just want their retirement and crap like that. A lot of them did quit though, and more are quitting.
And I can appreciate. I mean, again, I've been in a situation where I worked at a company where you had shit going down, and you had some people were like, "I'm out," and you had some people who. The people who stayed. The people who stayed. I didn't just. I stayed. I eventually left, but I wasn't directly involved in the stuff going down. I was observing this.
No.
But it still kind of left. It made me not want to stay. But anyway, so I can understand that. But I mean, when it comes to this kind of thing, remember that guy?
Well, that's why I think most agencies right now, there's not many good ones actually still in them, because anyone that is good, they would have quit by now or retired early or whatever. I know a lot of guys got kicked out from the National Guard because they didn't want to take the shot. Stuff like that. It's like these guys are standing their ground, and they're not. They said we're not taking the shot, so
I'm glad
you kick us out, or leave us be. But
it has become the line in the sand has definitely been drawn, and it's becoming more. I've seen that as well, but there's still guys who've seen a lot of stuff, and they're still in it. And they told these guys they were the good guys. They were doing the right thing. And it's like oftentimes the police is just government sponsored organized crime.
Oh yeah, I mean the Whitmore kidnapping plot. A lot of those were FBI agents, undercover cops, local cops that were involved with that. I mean, you'd think that they would let the so-called kidnappers actually kidnap Whitmore before they pulled the plug, but they did it before it was like, oh, look, we discovered this plot. But no, they made it.
And honestly, that's just laziness. They found the goofiest chuckleheads they possibly could and tried to make it seem like, oh yeah, they came up with this. I mean, wait. Do better. Do better. You can do better.
There's so many honeypots all over the internet, so it's not like you can fall. I guess you can. Yeah.
You got a buddy who's not a Fed, who just kind of like wants to be, up on where the loot is, in case when the shit hits the fan. Who's looking for honeypots, if you will. Oh man, clever.
But the other thing is that how the libtards like to keep using the Constitution to pass something, and they like to use the Constitution out of context, obviously. and the freedom of religion, where the separation state church, whatever.
Yeah.
That was meant because of the Church of England, which was run by the Crown. They didn't want that to happen in the U.S. That's why there's a separation of church and state. But it can go the other way, where the church can run the state, but not the state running the church. That's what they didn't want. But anyway,
yeah, they were okay with state. They were okay with the states having state churches. They just did not want a national church to be established.
But with this coronavirus thing that just happened, what was it, last year? I feel like it was last year or 2 years ago.
Honestly, we're still in 20. As far as I'm concerned, they're still in 2020. It hasn't felt like there was a new year ever.
I mean, this monkeypox is going to be the new thing, apparently, I guess. But the pandemic, that was the first. Well, not the first time. Well, it's probably, but it's the first time where the state or the feds closed down all the churches, telling them what to do. Intimidating churches that would not close. I know there was...
And the institutional churches just bent over and took it.
Yeah, took it
apart. And that's what we were talking about last time, about the churches going astray. That's a sign. That's a sign of...
The good thing about that is that all the churches that did close, all of the people that still wanted to go to church... went to church to ones that were still open, didn't care about the mask, didn't care about the vaccine. There were still plenty of churches, even in Yankee Land, even in Maryland and Delaware. We still or anywhere up in the New England states. There's still plenty of churches that still left their doors open and had to fight. Fight the state, fight the federal government. And there's a lot of feds or even local cops because this one church that my mom went to is it's a house, so it's in the neighborhood, but everybody goes there because that was their church. And so she was going to this church, and the neighbors were calling cops on them and stuff like that because they were still going to church during the pandemic, the height of pandemic. Mm-hmm. And so no one was supposed to be near each other. You shouldn't even be out in the roads at 12 at midnight or something crazy or something. It was a curfew. There was a curfew. But anyway, people were still going to that church, and people were calling cops on them. They actually, I think one of the ladies there was a lawyer, I'm pretty sure, but they were fighting these people, and they won. They never took them to court or anything because they knew this church would win, which was pretty funny. But there was I know there was also another church that my friend goes to. They started a union with other churches in Delaware to not close down, so they were all supporting one another. It didn't matter which affiliation you were a part of. It's just that it was standing against the state, basically.
And that's a remarkable thing now of just how, again, going back to our first podcast, that how it's starting to become a heck of a lot less about what you believe about some particular doctrinal issue, and a lot more about where do you stand upon the this all-enveloping evil which is overtaken our the top of our society, and it's just trying to work its corruption down. It's with the COVID being a just decisive a line in the sand in that regard. I think also, what is I don't want to be like just the voice of Bruce Charlton here, but the guy did he listed 3 things as being essentially where you stand on these 3 issues. He thinks that they're litmus tests. He describes them as the litmus tests. It's where you stand on COVID, where you stand on anti-racism, and where you stand on climate change. And he added a 4th one recently, where you stand on the war with Russia. But it's weird because I know people who are, again, I became a Catholic. Well, in the Catholic Church, they pray for Ukraine, mainly mainly because
For the suffering and all that. I mean, they're
sure, and also because the western part of Ukraine is Catholic. There's a divide. There's actually a religious divide in Ukraine between Orthodox and Catholic. But I know people who Catholics who think COVID is legit and the jab is gonna save us all, and don't get me started on the anti-racism, but that makes me sick. The simplistic and honestly soul-crushing approach that the Catholic Church, many in the Catholic Church are taking on that issue, getting people to just feel regret for who they are. In essence, I mean that is unforgivable. Anyway, so I was feeling these things. I came across Charlton, and it just further gave me oomph to just be like, wow, I can take a courageous stand. And it feels weird because I'm used to being like, oh, you're a Catholic, you're on the right team. It's not that way anymore. I think that I can be closer to a Baptist, say just Billy Joe Bob, the Baptist minister, who's like really aware of these things. And I've always had a sense. Of course, again, I'm a little bit more creative with my Christianity, owing to the fact that I used to be a Protestant, and I'm sure that there's some Catholics who probably would look down on me for that because I'm a little bit more willing to question things. I'm a little bit more willing to,
I mean, that's what happens when you're a new convert, basically. It's that you're more open to things, while, if you're raised in a church and you stay in that church, you close your off to other affiliates or other...
And historically, the Catholic Church has promoted unquestioning obedience as a virtue, because that's how it operates. That's how it operates. And, the romantic Christianity bloggers, of whom Bruce Charlton is one, would suggest that owing to the evolution of human consciousness through time, that approach of just you need to obey the church leaders is now untenable, and that we are a lot more responsible individually for what we believe than we necessarily were in the past, and we can't simply just trust the church leaders to tell us what's good.
I mean,
and I think if you look at who the leaders of the Catholic Church are in America, because technically, the bishop is my pastor. The priest is just his employee, because the bishop can't get to everybody.
Right.
Paul, the Apostle Paul was like bishop tier. Peter, bishop tier. All the apostles, bishop tier. They're the pastors. They hire. Well, they do now, and he just does administrative work. So technically, my spiritual daddy could be leading me to hell, and that's a problem. That's a huge problem, because the old school way the church is set up is I should be able to just listen to the guy. That's how the Orthodox, the Orthodox are really big on that. Everybody should have their own spiritual advisor who if you follow his advice, you will do well. But Catholic Church now, it's like, well, not everybody has their own personal spiritual advisor, but you're technically supposed to go to church, do what the church tells you to do. If you follow the rules of the church, you will flourish. And but I'm looking at that now. I don't see that. I don't see that it's possible.
I mean, when you have a hippie pope and a bunch of other and his clans of misfits over there, I mean, you got problems.
You do.
I mean, like I said, I wouldn't be a bit surprised with a bunch of churches splitting up and changing names and.
Yeah, I don't think the Catholic Church is going to last as it is. It will last as a, as a whole. I mean, it already did. It already does. The funny thing is, with the Orthodox, is they love to remind the Western Church it already is broken up.
Right.
And to me, I actually find that to be a lot more helpful of a view of Western Christianity. Is instead of like this hard divide between Catholics and Protestants, no, they're all Western Christians. Protestants and Catholics are very, very similar when you look at it in an East-West sort of way. that they're they came from the same place. They're very different from someone who came from Constantinople. But Catholics often feel more akin to the Orthodox, and sure, there is a closeness. The Protestantism didn't depart from the forms and everything, the outward appearance, but the way Catholics and Protestants think, very, very similar. And Orthodox do not think that. Do not think that way. So
interesting.
Yeah.
So,
but getting back, we got maybe
we're going back
we got maybe like 15 more minutes here. This has been a fun conversation. I'd like to go back a little bit to the campaign. I find that interesting. Why? How did you even get involved?
Oh, okay. I got that question a lot. So my mom, she with this school, like the CRT, whatever. When that started up into schools, that was.
That got a lot of people involved.
A lot of people involved. I mean, my mom was a homeschooler, so. But she cared about.
She just wanted to ruin the fun for everyone.
She cares about kids. I mean, she's a nurse, and that's what she does. She used to work with kids that can't feed or whatever, or has issues, and that's what she does. Anyway, she's also a big advocate for homeschooling because when my mom and dad got married, my dad was like, yeah, they took God out of schools when he was a kid, and we don't want our kids living in a atheistic, nihilistic education system. Like and they could see that it just out when after the 50s into the 60s, it just went downhill in the 60s. So anyway, so my mom got involved with these the Republican Party because they were going to these homeschool meetings, making a ruckus to the school board, just like everybody else across the nation. And so they asked her to run for the Republican Central Committee, and so she did.
Now, what is that? The Republican Central Committee?
So basically, they help fundraise people that they want to get elected. They raise money for the party. They also can, if someone drops out, like if they have to step down for whatever reason, they can appoint another Republican into that position. So if like the administration, whoever.
So is that like the head of the Republican Party in the county? Is that?
Yeah. If you have any questions, basically, you can go to their meetings. They talk about whatever the concerns. Who they're thinking about, putting their money behind.
Yeah.
Whoever. You could be a part of that. I mean, they have websites out there, so you can keep in contact. But anyway, but then they needed someone to run for another position. They were looking around for weeks and weeks and weeks, and they were also looking for someone to run for a school board, in a certain district, and they were looking for people left and right, talking to people. People were always too busy, or no one's getting involved in politics or anything remotely.
Only the wrong
it's
people.
So yeah, right. It's so dirty and everything. Everybody it's this. Anyone that gets elected is you just kind of write them off as as corrupt,
self-seeking,
bags, or whatever. So it took them a while, but they finally got some people to run, and they got me to run because no one else wanted to run. Literally, I was their last. I signed up
bottom of the barrel.
The last week of the election. But anyway, so from then on, I was door knocking every Saturday and Sunday basically until the election in July. So I was doing that for 2-day.
I went with you that one time.
Yeah, we got yelled at. It's like,
It's like unfriendly neighborhood.
The dogs were barking, and it irritated the dude. He's like, "Get the hell away!" And we're like, "Okay."
So you didn't have an opportunity to show him your pretty face. I think that would have made the difference.
Right. Anywho, so I got some campaign money from a few friends, like your mother.
Yeah.
And
said, please vote for me a couple times.
Yeah.
Followed my dad's advice.
On my knees. And it worked. So I think I'm pretty much solidly in. But
it seems that way. Yeah, those damn mailing ballots.
Yeah, mailing ballots. Yeah.
You had an 80-point lead, and it went down to what, 40?
Yeah, something around there.
Yeah. But it looks like they're basically done counting them. So I mean, it sounds like you're.
I'm solidly in, I guess.
You ready to do that for 4 years? Hang out with a couple of old geezers and rule the rule part. You know, that's what keeps them. That's what keeps them.
Yeah, that's the other reason the party wants me in there, to keep things honest, because apparently things are not honest, I guess. But anyway, I'm supposed to be the moral person in this. And,
is that to suggest that the people who are currently have been in there have been kind of working things?
Yeah, allowing their buddies to get first dibs on, certain assets or whatever.
Yeah.
Property or anyway, yeah. So it should be interesting. I have a lot to learn.
I'll say.
Yeah. But it's been a heck of a ride. Like I said, even in our we talked about this earlier, but even in our county, these people accepted money from Hogan's gang of freaks and geeks out there, and they accepted money, and they make their excuse as saying, well, Cox has no chance of winning in the November election.
And these were people who were supposed to be
conservative, homeschooler. So I think one of them is a homeschooler. The other two were, supposed to be conservative or traditional.
In fact, I've seen that it's been portrayed that you, your mom, and a couple of the other up-and-comers who are trying to upset the
establishment,
the status quo. Yeah. That you're somewhat these people who accepted money from the worm.
I think
they're kind of like they're leaders of the whole, or at least that's how it's presented by the opposition. That they're the leaders of the good guys. The leaders of the good guys took money from the worm.
Right.
And it kind of, man.
I mean, they weren't exactly leaders, but they're well known and they've been elected before.
And that kind of makes them de facto.
Right. Like they won, they won one election and they did a pretty good job, but a fairly, a decent job, not like a great job or anything, but good enough to be like, okay, I guess I'll vote for you next. Next turn. But then you find out, they took money. You don't need this money because you won last year. I mean, all you have to be is like,
you're in a Republican county. You're gonna win it. You're gonna win it.
The other thing, what I heard is that these people were promised by Hogan freaks out there. Dude, these people are like zombie, Anyway, they were promised a higher position. In their careers. Yeah, that's what I hate about these.
If they voted for Schultz, right? If they supported
Schultz, voted for Schultz, anyway, they were promised a higher position, and apparently that's what you do. And that's what I hate about people in politics, is that they look at it as a career. It's not meant to be looked at as a career. It's supposed to be a civic duty that everybody takes turns from. No one's supposed to stay there for X amount of years, whatever. But, that was, And the funny thing is, that's what I heard about all this right after I came home from vacation, and it's like you're showered with all these all this new information about how like
And it might.
infighting. It doesn't matter if you're a Republican Party or a Democrat Party. There's so much infighting. Everybody's like, "Oh, the Republican Party is so divided." Well, it's like there's so many different parties within a party, and it's everybody knows that everybody's going to vote for the Republicans or Democrats now. There's no second. I mean, there's no third party, fourth party, whatever. There's only going to be these two parties that get elected every single year. So everybody, runs as this or that.
And then you get this proliferation of flavors.
Yeah, and you still have these people that think, "Oh, Republican, they're conservative, blah 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 blah," but no.
Yeah.
And no one expressed their real political views. Everybody hides them. I did the same thing, obviously, or I would have been elected.
That's a frustration. That is a frustration. That is a frustration.
Yeah, everybody hides their real, true views. No one's word it counts for jack. I mean, I don't say like if someone asks me straight up, "So what do you think about abortion?" I would tell them straight off. Like if no one's going to that conversation, I wouldn't say say anything. And I don't talk that much anyway. So everybody's like, "Oh, he's such a quiet guy." That's the other thing why I think I got voted in. Whenever everybody thinks I'm going to be, play ball, or I hear new people that get elected. The old guys try to influence them and have them play ball. It's like, well, this is the way things are. Like saying like the new guy would be like, "Oh, why can't we do this? Whatever, we'll do it this way." It's like, well, that's the way things are. We gotta, take this money and or whatever. Yeah. It's like, why do we have like the other thing is that the county school board is the reason why they gotta allow CRT is that they won't get any money. It's like, well, we'd rather have who cares about the money if this is gonna really affect our children. I mean, it's like I'd rather have I'd rather have a rundown field than have my children come out as gay, lesbian, whatever, or trannies. Anyway, they make the excuses that the Maryland state says, "Oh, if you do this, you get this certain amount of money, and then if you don't, we won't give it to you," basically, and that's what and that's how basically these people get money for not allowing it. So
yeah,
that's why they allow it.
No one takes a decisive step at saying we don't need their money. I don't need my pension. There's a higher there's a higher calling, there's a greater reward. Death is not the worst of evils.
I'd rather be poor and free than rich and enslaved, basically. Because even when you're rich, they can still take it away from you. Everything that these idiots think that they're
you're preserving nothing.
Right. They're leaving nothing for their kids. The thing is that they all have families, they all have kids, and they're not. They act like this is how it's going to keep on going, and their kids are going to have a future, but it's not going to go down that way. They're going to be enslaved just like the rest of us, or some sort of sense. Anywho, it's just frustrating, but there's a lot of hope too. I mean, a lot of people are waking up, things are changing, and I still don't want to leave Maryland, but a lot of people are. But a lot of people are hanging in for this one election. So people say if Cox don't get in, a lot of people are going to leave Maryland, and most likely Florida, Texas. The same old, same old. Yeah, and so, but it's an off year. Cox has a chance. A lot of other reasons why, no one wants to vote for liberals because of, you got Biden and AOC and Omar, retards. The biggest retards in politics right now. And they're all from the libtard side, so here's hoping and here's praying, it's a long shot, but it's a shot. a shot in the dark that it's worth it's worth fighting for. So.
Absolutely. I think that about does it for us this evening.
Right.
So thank you for joining us on the American Yeoman, and we'll see you next time.